Let me tell you a story, or at least how I imagine the story might have started. We're gathered this morning in a building that came from the collective yes of the people who made up Lawrenceville First Christian Church in the 1990s. This congregation, which included many of you gathered here today, took a leap of faith and moved out of the familiar stone church in downtown Lawrenceville. You bought land in a less developed area of Gwinnett County, built a new building, and moved in 25 years ago this week. I'm sure there were some no reactions when the idea was first discussed. And more than one of you probably felt some fear and anxiety at such a big change. But you said yes, and you moved forward. And this building has served the church well for those 25 years. It now supports weekly worship for not one, but 3 different churches. Our church, plus the Moriah Church on Saturdays, and Story Forest Christian Church on Sunday afternoons. There have been countless weddings and funerals and memorial services and baptisms and church dinners and anniversary celebrations and blood drives and so much more in this building. During this season of Advent, when we wait for the child that God promised to Mary, the child that the angel told Joseph to name Jesus, many of us may be feeling some fear and anxiety about our individual lives, our families, our church, our nation, our world. And yet we move through Advent knowing that God is calling us to do new things in this corner of Gwinnett County. So today, as we remember Joseph's yes, we also celebrate this congregation's yes more than 25 years ago. Let us give thanks for all that has happened here in the past 25 years. And as we do, let's look forward to the next 25 years of ministry in this part of Gwinnett County that now holds so many opportunities for us to engage with the community in shared ministry. Let us continue to say yes to all that God has in store for us.
Now, just a quick bit of history. The mid-1980s, the Rock Church on Perry Street was landlocked with different buildings and facilities around us. We had a rock building that you really couldn't expand. It's difficult to build onto rock. We did build an educational building in back of it there. But we began thinking about, someone mentioned the fact that maybe we need to relocate. And of course, as Diane was saying, that was not too exciting to begin with. But finally in 1989, we bought these 5 acres here on Houston Road in those days. There was no Sugarloaf Parkway at that time. We were told not to build until we sold our building on Perry Street. We selected during that time of waiting the architect, and we had blueprints made so that we would be ready when the building sold and we could begin to build. And finally, in July 1996, we sold the Perry Street building to First Chinese Baptist Church of Atlanta. And we began that wilderness journey at the theater at Central Gwinnett High School. Finally, the building being sold, we revised our blueprints and changed a little bit, and we began building. The groundbreaking ceremony was on March 30th, 1997, which was Easter Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock up front here somewhere. The building was not totally completed, but we were able to get the occupancy permits. And so the 4th Sunday of Advent, December 21st, 1997, we had our first worship service at 3495 Sugarloaf Parkway. 4th Sunday of Advent, the choir shared their cantata. December 17th, 1997, those hymnals that we sang from a few moments ago were delivered. And March 15th, 1998, we dedicated this building. Now we are completing 25 years today, and I challenge Diane's beginning the next 25 years is what came to mind, but I think we're beginning the next 100 years, but we can talk about that and work on that together.
Well, I'm going to use my 2 minutes to try to tell you how excited we were as a congregation. We drove out here all the time. Everybody did, come in at different times of the day. It was a dirt road, there was no place to park. I am so sure that the site manager got tired of watching us come out here to gawk. But we loved our Rock Church on Perry Street, and we shed tears the night that we left there. But this was an adventure that none of us had ever had any part in or anything like, and we all wanted to see it as it happened, and we kept a close watch on it. I'm going to tell you about the steeple as part of my story today. This week, Kim told me that her father, W.O. Thompson, had noted that originally the company from Texas that manufactured the steeple sent the wrong steeple, and it had to be turned around and sent back. I probably knew that at the time, but it surprised me this week when I found out about it again. But that second time that the steeple was due, I made plans on my lunch hour. I worked in Lawrenceville, and so I drove out here, and the steeple was removed from the truck already. It was being lifted up, so I got to see the steeple being set. It wasn't a quick thing, so I had to go back to work. But that night, we all went over to Captain D's in Lawrenceville, ate supper, excited to know that we were going to go see the steeple. So we headed down Five Forks Trickham Road toward the church. As soon as we turned right, we could see lights in the sky. Now, Hoyt's told you there wasn't anything here except the house at the back, which wasn't in use except as our church office, and the Mormon church was on the corner, and then it was just houses. So the lights really showed up bright. So as we turned into the church drive, all of us were just speechless. The steeple was lit. It was shining up into the stars. We were all just kind of struck dumb for a minute and couldn't say anything by all of the magnificence that lay before us. Finally, my daughter Meredith spoke up and said, "I can't believe this is going to be our church." And you know what? I still feel that way today, 25 years later.
So as we celebrate this building and rededicate it for use in the next 25, 50, 100, 150 years, will you join me for a litany of dedication? Today we celebrate 25 years in this building at 3495 Sugarloaf Parkway. We are thankful that God put it into the hearts of people to build this house to the glory of God and to see it through to completion. We give thanks for the many forms of ministry that have happened here and for the many people who have gathered here to worship and learn and pray and share. We reaffirm that this building is God's house for the worship of God, the preaching of the gospel, the celebration of baptism, and the Lord's Supper, and we rededicate it as a place of worship. We also rededicate it as a place of fellowship, outreach, learning, music, and community. We look forward to the next 25 years and beyond, and we recommit ourselves to make this building a place to praise God and to prepare people to go out and share the good news in our community and in our world. We celebrate this building in the spirit of Christ and rededicate it for our continuing ministry.
So when I first became the minister here, I asked a lot of questions. And one of the questions I asked was for the history of the building. And the most fascinating thing I learned was that the space that we are now in was meant after a while to be the fellowship hall. And that the sanctuary would be beyond this wall. That one day there would be such growth, excuse me, and such expansion that there would be a new sanctuary built. And for 25 years, many people before me have worked and struggled, given their time, their money, their person power towards where we are. And I am privileged to be the minister right now for this 25th anniversary. And I'm going to leave us with a thought and a charge. Now, this is there, this is here. I've got all these in my office of what this was going to look like. Okay? And you can't see it from there because it's kind of old, but it's still beautiful. I'm going to hang it out next to all the other wonderful rendering and items there. What I want us to do is to think. To think about your role in getting this building from 25 to 50. Some of us may not be here. Some of us who think they may not be here may be here. We don't know. But God has called us, all of us, under this steeple. God has allowed this to be our church home. And we are merely stewards for the next group of people, for the next children that grow up here, for the next people in the community who will need outreach and who will need to find out that if they didn't go into the Lifeline screening, that they would be dead in 6 months. That's the work that's gone on in this church. The blood that's been taken from here have gone to help people who were bleeding out, who needed surgery. That's been done here. Lives have been changed in here. People who have gotten sober in here. And that's because of your work, your vision, your planning, your tithes, your offerings, your incredible intelligence in choosing wonderful ministers and other things that you have done. But now the baton has been passed from 0 to 25. Who's going to take the baton from 25 to 50? And you may not be here for that next 25 years, but the decisions you make now, the money that you give now, the tithes, the offerings that you dispense now, go to that vision for 50. So please know that God has placed you here to be able to get us to that next place, and celebrate the fact that you're still here and that we have, I've said this since I got here, we have everything that we need to flourish. Believe that you play a wonderful, pivotal, special role in getting us from 25 to 50. So the next lives that are saved, the next children that are blessed, the next churches that can praise and worship will be allowed to do that because you said yes to God and you said yes to the work of this church.